belly up. So I think it's always best to lead with your weaknesses to see how people take advantage of that. And you know right away the character of someone's core values when you lead with your weaknesses and how they respond to that. So I just have a lot of issues with people rejecting me because I have too many things or too many weaknesses, for example. And it's just been my routine. I've always done it. Even during my lawsuits, I am belly first. Like, I know all of my own weaknesses and I know what I've contributed to this. And even with my contributions that I'm fully aware of, I still am here asking for this treatment to change or for compensation to be to be sent my way. If someone was going to ask me for help, I would want to know that they did their best. Some people never ask for help at all and jump off a bridge. And that's the reality that we face. I am like horrified at how low I have been since I decided to go back to school. Horrified. Like I look through my Facebook and when I go through my profile pictures, all I see are people that have commented on my things that are no longer my friends, more than likely because they couldn't handle me always being in trauma mode, or I snapped on them because I didn't feel like they were a good enough friend during a time that I really needed people in my life to help me. And I took a lot of things personally and pushed a lot of people away. You know, if they didn't leave voluntarily after seeing all the bullshit that was going on because they don't want to be around that, I definitely pushed them. You know, even people that reached out to try and help me, you know, some of them would start up with like, oh, have you tried this? Like option A? And I would just snap. Don't know what it's like, looking it up online maybe, trying to find solutions the way I did the first time it happened to me, kind of thing. Like, you know, I think that's kind of what people did. And, you know, they imagine themselves in my shoes and they're like, oh no, that must be so bad. What would I do in his shoes? And they look up everything I already did. And they're like, oh, did you call this person? And I'm like, honey, I'm at the point of like calling the director there. Like, I'm down here. And they actually get offended that I'm snappy about it. And I am snappy. Like just now, I can't handle it. I'm like, have you read anything that I've been doing? Like, are you just tuning into the radio station a year later and offering me step one, acting like I haven't already done step one? Like, I've already done all of the steps before I'm at this point. And it shows you've never been here, because if you have been here, you would know that by the time people get to where I am, they've already exhausted everything that they can do on their own. I think that if you're gonna ask somebody if they need help, you can start by, you know, looking at what they've done. If it's hard to gather or all over the place, you can ask them, you know, what have you done so far? Is there anything I can do? You don't sit there and try and guess and project how you would feel if you were in those shoes, but you've never been there yourself, and try to be detective and try to figure it out for them, because it's not the right way to help somebody. If you really want to help somebody that is in that kind of state of place, telling them what they should do is not you're not going to get a happy response. Especially if you tell them with such ignorance over the whole situation, and you've never actually been in that situation. So it's like, and you can tell. So what have you done? Is there anything I can do to help? How can I help? Is there anything I can take off your chest? Can I call anyone for you? That's really the best way. Can I call anyone for you? Can I take any of your own work off of you? Can you tell me what you've already done? Maybe I know something that you haven't tried. Even the professionals that have tried to help me will get to the end of everything that I've already done and will say to me, wow, you've really exhausted everything. I can't think of anything else. You've tried everything. So if even professionals are coming to me and saying, wow, like, I can't believe it, how much you've done, then I'm not sure if, like, somebody on Facebook who's never been through it or has any experience is going to be able to figure it out. So I barked at a lot of people. I think I assumed that they should know that. I was like, isn't this common sense? Like, no. I'm so arrogant about it right now too. Like, I know that when it comes to these kinds of things, I'm a fucking elitist. I'm not proud to be an elitist over trauma though. Or, like, that's not, like, bulldozing through it. I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud that, hey, oh my God, I'm like the best bulldozer in the world. Tasty. Nobody that I knew in Canada could help me the way that I needed. Not the system, not friends, not family. Everybody was maxed out. Everybody. Nobody could help me. This is my public declaration. I mean, I have already kind of declared it to everyone in Parliament, but all the courthouses are closed and the phone doesn't even turn on. And like, you call the Crown Attorney's office and it just basically, service call failed. And same thing with Service Ontario and Service Canada, and you have to keep calling back, and sometimes it can take like 5 minutes of sitting there with your phone, redialing, call failed, redial, call failed, redial. And you like, I just like put my phone down. I've recorded it now. I just put my phone down and I just like hit it, and then finally it rings, and then you sit on hold for like 90 minutes, and then you get somebody that is just, you can tell they don't want to be there. Like, from the moment they say hello, they're waiting for you to scream and be belligerent because of how many people's lives right now in this current economy are, in survival mode. And that brings out the worst in all of us. I know that for a fact. And right now, everybody's in fucking survival mode. Fucking hash. Amen. The only fucking burning bush in my life is fucking cannabis. Honestly. I am a whole lot calmer now. Not because life is easier, but also harder. I've more desensitized, I think, is the correct feeling I have now, is more apathy towards my own issues, just an incredible amount of empathy towards really anybody that is going to suffer from anything that I've had to endure, that I've survived by some miracle that will not be available to everyone. And that breaks my heart that I would not be alive today without a miracle. Things have only gotten worse for the world. I'm furious. I think the first YouTube video I posted was about this rant. I had my red hair. I was about to lose everything in 2018. It was my one of many last breaths. Didn't fix anything in that point, and so I survived somehow, not by the way that I wanted. Definitely something that destroyed more of my self-worth over time. I'm definitely not thriving yet. I wish I could take my money and run away and never look back. Take that luxury and that privilege to just vanish and start over and not use my story to try and make a difference so that it stops happening to other people. I am sitting here empathetically for others, and just really, for me, I have been unbelievably apathetic towards my own issues because I have been so consumed with trying to use my story to fix what happened to me, so that it doesn't happen to others. But it's definitely eating me up. I have been, barking quite literally since the end of 2018 about all of the problems. We've noticed it for a while, this discrepancy between our pay and cost of living and how much some people are making versus others, and it's definitely gotten a lot worse since 2020. I mean, I can't even begin to fathom, what would you do if you made $32 million, okay, an hour? It's a lot. $32 million an hour. I can't even. What would you do if you made $32 million an hour? I can't even say it. I think it's a joke. It is really funny. I can't even believe it. Okay. What would you do with that money? The top 10 richest people in the world together made $540 billion in 2020. Those 10 people. Let's say they worked the whole 1,600 hours a year, let's say, approximately. We know these bitches didn't work at all. Okay. By 10 people with that money comes to $32 million an hour. No matter what way that was cut up, it's too much. And I can't even imagine what I would do with $32 million an hour. It makes me feel like I'm literally on a roller coaster. Like when I try and think about what I would do if I made $32 million an hour, I feel like I'm literally going down a slide. My stomach literally comes up. It hurts to think about this. The first time that I threatened to sue the government was, I believe, in June of 2020, after the National Student Loan Service Center had bullied me into homelessness. Quite literally, I'll just let the evidence speak for itself from now on. I hate telling the story. I'm uploading it all. You can take a look at all of the correspondence yourself, but I'm telling you the story, and vaguely, and if you want to get specifics, you can ask me for the link, and it'll detail everything, facts, cold hard facts. I'm tired of people doubting me because I have autism, and acting like I'm imagining things, or that I am overly sensitive and I'm overreacting, because I'm not. I'm actually underreacting quite significantly for someone with autism. So, if I'm getting ripped off a hospital bed, so I have really started recording everything, mostly because I am so used to that narrative of people looking at me like I'm making stuff up, because it's an unbelievable story, plain and simple. The uniqueness of what's happened to me is very unique. It's unbelievable. I'm sure, though, 100% certain, that everything that does happen to me happens to some degree to a lot of people in this country and world, for that matter. I represent just like this, a buffet of problems that need to be fixed. With these lawsuits that I'm doing, what that's going to do to our system, which our government is, I don't know if they're aware of this, or they're avoiding me because they're afraid of this, or just treating me the way that they would treat anybody like me, which is kind of, all of them could be options. But what I represent is probably, I think, one of the largest class action lawsuits this country, or the world perhaps, has ever seen. And they're going to say to themselves, hey, that happened to me too, and I also want compensation. And they're going to come out of the woodwork. And I already know a lot of people that have already attached onto me and are waiting for me to proceed with this, that they can also be heard. So, it's truly marvelous what's happened to me and how I've survived it, to be able to live and tell the story the way that I can, to have all of the evidence so that I'm not discredited by the system, because that's what they typically do with people who don't have evidence. So yeah, it's very alarming. So the first time I threatened to sue the government was because of the student loans. The root of the student loans department was actually the Ministry of Education. So I started harassing Patty Hajdu. I actually contacted all the ministers, and they all referred me to Patty about this. And so Patty is the one that handles all of this. She was definitely not trained to handle what was happening, and dismissed my concerns completely. It had gotten to the point where I was living out of my car, and everything that I tried to do to stay off the street, from contacting my ministers to Ontario Métis Nation to Autism Ontario to just everybody. I was just like, help, like I need more money, or I need reductions in my student loans, like somebody help. And I couldn't get anywhere. And even Patty Hajdu, the Minister of Education, was like, we gave you $100 off your $600 loan. Didn't even take a look at my financial capacity assessment, and she said that it was affordable, and just basically dismissed it there. And I couldn't afford another place to live, and I ended up homeless. And then, it's just been a lot of issues, and a lot of public administration passing the ball or dismissing me completely. I've been making these people aware of all of these holes in the system, and it continues to get worse, the system, and how people are being treated, and there are more vulnerable people than there were before, and so it's alarming for me. I want to give up at the, I want to be like, okay, like, I just want to run away. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Because it's just so hard for these people to take you seriously or even respect you as a human, to be fair. Like, there's such a hierarchy in the public administration that if you don't work for the system, then somehow your voice isn't counted. Like, even though we're the ones that voted you in and pay for your salary. I think a lot of them are trained to just put on noise canceling headphones when dealing with the public and just to nod and agree with everything. That's definitely the experience I've had. Or they'll say that they can do something, but it's not them, and they have to refer you to somebody else, and then that person refers you to somebody else. And no matter what you do to get to the root of that problem, it doesn't go anywhere. Every now and then you get a really good person, but then for some reason their hands are tied as well, because I am not your usual case. The evolution of these lawsuits really started when I came to London. I had already agreed that I was going after the student loans department for what happened to me and everything that I tried to do to prevent myself from getting homeless. And so I knew for sure that I would be filing a lawsuit, and I've been working on that mostly, trying to deal with them. They've sent me letters to show me what they've done to change to avoid this from happening to me. And I'm like, no, I still need to be compensated. And, I'm not gonna be happy until there's no more student loan department. So like, enjoy. And then after I sent that email, they got a new director, as a matter of fact. Which I find really funny. There's been a lot of position changes with people who I come into contact with. Going through all of my records, slowly realizing that the root of this issue, a lot of it is the Ministry of Education, but it's not just how they handled my student loan department. It's everything from kindergarten curriculum and on to who gets into school and who doesn't, to the lack of resources and everything. You look at this most recent case that I'm pursuing with the Ministry of Education, I am going to bring up everything else that's happened to me to prove the narrative that I have against the Ministry of Education and being completely, entirely incompetent, not simply divide those decisions between whoever is in power. And the policies need to be made by a collective. Anyways, the system has us and chooses what we are to learn. And they have the opportunity to teach us a lot of things. How to vote strategically, how to cook, how to take care of your finances, how to deal with drug use, sex, gender issues. We need to stop allowing gay men to get their gay history and gay Bible from older gay men. That can definitely disrupt a good, healthy relationship with other men in the future. We need to be there for them and show gay people that there is an opportunity for love and for a positive relationship, so that they don't all end up perverts later and self-haters and taught to self-hate, because the system is responsible for teaching us to hate ourselves because we're not included, and we're told not to be that way our entire life, and that it's evil. And a lot of us joke about going to hell in a handbasket every day. That's the education's fault, on top of First Nations education, being lied to repeatedly about my own history around a bunch of other people that just like gobble it up and think it's like we just handed the land over. But when I look in the mirror, I see a European who gets anything he wants, and I can walk into a job interview off the street in an outfit I just bought in Valley Village that wasn't even washed, that still smells moldy, that's got some Febreze on it. And I walk in there and I get a job, and I don't even have the references, and I lie about my high school, and I tell them that I can just do it and I have no experience in it. And they hired me because I am white, good looking, and a male, and confident. My friend said that as soon as they saw me, he knew that he wasn't getting the job, and he didn't even want to do the interview. And they barely, ask questions, and like they're already on to the next person as soon as they walk in the door if you look too native. Even for places that say that they're hiring Indigenous people to increase their Indigenous quota, hire natives like me, who look white, who got everything they wanted, and make people feel safe, is really what it comes down to. Because the narrative on First Nations that has been delivered by our Ministry of Education and all of our other policy have narrated First Nations to be savages, uncivilized, angry, and they don't mention anything about why they're angry, because they feel like they're in jail in their own land. Nobody asks, hey, why are they angry? And that really bothers me too. So the Ministry of Education is responsible for lots of things that have gone wrong in my life that will ricochet into the hearts of a lot of people. And there's going to be a lot of people that will want to piggyback on my voice. And that's the threat that we have for the government. And that's why they're not treating me with respect, how I think. And they're just trying to hush me out, hoping that I would probably just die off, which I think happens. And I think that the Ministry of Education is a big step. I have decided to go after also the Department of Justice. Now, the Department of Justice, I think I should also forget to mention that our salaries and our income and our taxes and how we manage our debt is truly through the Department of Justice, because they are the ones that manage CRA and our taxes and what our affordable living is, basically, and what our, yes, our wages are determined by the province, but our it's kind of a bit of both Department of Justice through provincial and federal that I will be filing lawsuits again. When I speak about the Department of Justice, I'm not only talking about police or the court system. Yes, I've had a lot of issues with the police. Okay, nothing like people who have color have. Okay, but not even close. Like, I would be criminalized and in jail if I didn't look this way for the things that I've done to the police. to challenge them and to make them do what their job is and use my privilege totally. I am criminalized for my autism. That is really the only thing. I can't be spotted from across the street, you know. I have to be in an active meltdown, basically. Although some of them think I'm on drugs because of the way my eyes look or the way that I like look around a lot, and I'm not perfect the way neurotypicals are. So sometimes an officer will ask me if I'm on drugs. Actually, a lot of them do. Even teachers asked me when I was a kid, asked me if I was on drugs, like really young, 12. So the court system has fucked me over too. And the Ontario Land Lieutenant Board, which is a Governor Attorney General issue, and our taxes. And some might think that the Ministry of Finance is responsible, but at the end of the day, it's the Department of Justice who handles our finances, in my personal opinion, based off of what I've gathered, investigating, basically, asking everybody, literally climbing up every single little ladder across every system possible to determine who pays who and who's responsible at the end. Pretty self-explanatory, I think, at this point when we look at the justice system. And most importantly, of course, I'm also going to be going after the Ministry of Health. Big time. And in most recent years, I have been able to officially compile enough information and evidence to prove a narrative. I've proven this narrative quite well. I've talked to a lot of people and I record it, and I ask the right questions that are going to be needed to be heard before a judge. And I have done my due diligence to avoid litigation as well. Given where I stand right now with all of my efforts, everyone that I've escalated to, I've got all of the proper channels. I believe that not only will they be hearing my case for everything that's happened to me most recently, but I will also be submitting all of my evidence that I've gathered my entire life to really solidify this narrative that the system here is completely obsolete. Everything needs to be reset, and the people that are in power right now are not the ones going to be doing it, because they're the ones that made us need to reset it in the first place. So things are going to change dramatically. Yeah. But like I always say, good intentions don't make good people. I don't know if it's safe to say that the Ministry of Health is just like, I'm pretty sure like now, like I think I would go more in detail about the implications of poor policies within our health ministry has on our community, but I think coronavirus has definitely exposed all of that. A lot of the problems that I've experienced are being seen widespread. So I think that's alarming. And my whole life has been impacted negatively by the Ministry of Health, from how my mother was treated, to how I was treated as a child, to how the neglect of the system during children's aid, and just really across the board. So now, I've been without a family doctor most of my life, and there are 7,000 people waiting for a family doctor in my area, and there's only one person accepting patients. I just got off the phone with the manager of Healthcare Connect. I think the most important thing here is to really disclose the fact why I'm suing these systems. With all my issues, the Department of Justice, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Education across the federal and provincial platforms. It costs around $7,000 to $15,000 to file a piece of paper and be represented at the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal. Upwards of $15,000 per application, per problem. If I were to pursue this legally, 6 perpetrators times, let's say, 5 violations each to be heard for my issues with at the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal. It's $500,000. $500,000 for all the human rights violations across my life. I recorded that call too. Based off of that, I have decided to sue the government for classism. 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 If you're a person of color or a different minority, like Stephen Hawkins, disabled, and if you have enough money, your disability, minority, whatever you've got, is less adverse to your success, if that makes sense. And that's why there's a lot of issues between people in the same race, even. There are people of color that look at other people of color as whitewashed. What makes them whitewashed? Class. 6 applications. 6 times 15,000, $90,000. The application itself proves classism. I just love it. With that lawsuit for classism, I strongly believe, and I'm only predicting this, I hope I can squeeze this through. I hope that with the right wording, I will be able to be represented for all of my forms of discrimination under the blanket of classism because of how the system is regulated for people with money. And I will argue that I wouldn't even be standing here today if I had money or an equal opportunity. And the thing that makes people feel most oppressed is deprivation. You can call me whatever you want. Call me a faggot. You can call me a retard. You can call me whatever the fuck you want if you don't restrict me or close the door on my face because of it. People's class in society determines whether or not they are subjected to a greater amount of discrimination. And their class in society allows people that are discriminated to fight because they're the only ones that can afford it. So eat that. All this work that I'm doing will be appreciated. And I know that I'll be hated for a while. It's like what we do. That's, people hate change. Talking about this reset. Fucking reset. Move on out. All the people in there right now, get the fuck out. Everyone in there right now, get the fuck out. Restructure. Hire people like me with empathy, logical thinking, first-hand experience. You want to fix a people problem? You don't find a businessman. You have a homeless problem? Hire someone homeless. Ask them, what did you need? Can you go out to people and get more information as somebody who's been there? Because they'll know that you've been there and they'll listen and they'll feel comfortable. You send someone who's never been in there? Gonna send in Susan? Susan goes into some homeless shelter to get information on how they can do better. You think they're gonna fucking not answer any questions? No. Send in somebody that's been homeless, who's been there, who's slept in those beds. What else can we do? I've already given them everything that I know. What else can we do? I need to hear from everybody here. What more can we do? What else do we need? But that's not the way. Instead, we hire people who read about books on homelessness to fix problems on homelessness. Books written by people who are merely interpreting a homeless person's story. Because very rarely do the story of that homeless person gets published for medical review or any kind of educational purpose. The only time those kinds of journals are determined of any educational value are when they are whitewashed through some white guy who's never been homeless, who's got a degree, spent his whole life paying for an education, and has no idea what it would be like to be homeless. Has no idea. And so they're interpreting the story and trying to solve problems. It's wrong. Those are the things that we're talking about when we need to reset, okay? We're talking about Mark Miller as our Indigenous Resources Federal Minister. Why isn't it a chief? We already have leaders across this country. It's alarming to see how many people are spoken for across this country. And that's what needs to be reset, okay? If you want to fix something, you need to ask somebody that has been there. And that's the kind of person that needs to be managing it. The other thing that needs to be reset, no one's gonna like this. No more single power. No more. It should be one team of people, period. Equal. And there should be, a fair vote across this country as to where people stand on every single issue, and every single issue should be heard, and everything should be met in the middle, period. We will never be trusted as a nation by other nations or people in our own country if we have one guy that runs for 4 years makes a bunch of policies, then a woman comes in, changes everything, and then you got Doug Ford coming in and he just changes everything, and we just keep going like this. Our policies are not policies, they are bandages over an overarching problem of disconnection. We all have sacrifices. And the fact that we have to sacrifice so dramatically each time somebody else gets into power, you know, you have things that people have been working on for like 4, 10, maybe even 50 years. Like our fucking census. How long was that going on for before Harper just decided to be like, we don't need a census anymore? Ignored everybody in the professional practice. We don't need that. Save money there. No. And that can't happen again. Conservatives, liberals, NDP, everybody has a different opinion. And they all think because if you vote the right person in, you can have it all your way. And that's the problem. Never will there be a day, should anyone feel as if they vote the right person in, will they have everything the way they want. And if you think for 1 second that you can have everything you want, you're a spoiled brat that likes to oppress others. Because nobody gets everything they want unless they're evil. And what happened in the United States of America is exactly what happens when people think that if they vote someone in, they can have whatever they want. That's what happened down in the States. And if we continue that narrative of exacting control over people that differ from us through means of power, we will continue on this road of civil unrest for eternity, because it's really been the Commonwealth's practice forever. It's just like, and that's not a democracy. A democracy means that everybody's voices is heard. And we don't do that right now. Our current system is broken. But when you're dealing with such globalization, you have a lot more culture, a lot more input, a lot more change, a lot more acceptance of others. And I think that's really hard for people. And we need better role models as politicians to really step up to the plate and be like, you know what, no, change is inevitable. But we have to make sure that when we do make those changes, that they consider everyone the most. Everyone. Otherwise, because of this globalization, thirds and fourths and fifths of populations are going to feel deprived. And sometimes up to, only a third get what they want because their votes are split up so much. So you'll have 5 parties, and the conservatives are really, there's only one conservative party. So all the conservatives vote there. And it only takes like 30 to 40% of the people that are voting to win, because you'll have, all of these other liberals disagreeing with each other and splitting up their liberal vote. And then the conservatives win all the power and change everything. And then some conservatives go liberal after that. And it just goes back and forth, No more of that. You shouldn't be voting for who has power anymore. That's the reset that we deserve as a democracy, especially as a globalized one. We're no longer one race, we're no longer one culture. We've completely taken an entire continent away, and resources have been stolen and sold for nothing. And we need to better manage our country. Stop giving everything away for free to people outside this country. Oh, Canada's so nice because we give it away for free. That's why. And just nod and go, "You're welcome. Please and thank you." Anyways, this is at an hour and something. I have ranted. It's really, I'm only doing this to make sure that it's an easily accessible communication to the people that I'm suing, to show that I've put this on YouTube with a date, to show that, hey, yes, I'm coming after you, and every single day I find more evidence against you to prove this narrative. And I'm never going away until you hear my cases and put this all on public record. And I will continue putting it on public record the way I am right now until that happens. So thanks for listening.